By 1945, Germany's police were not just police, they were killers. Under Heinrich Himmler, the uniformed officers of the Ordnungspolizei, the order police, had been transformed from traffic cops and beat patrolmen into instruments of genocide. Police battalions had guarded ghettos, escorted deportation trains, hunted Jews in hiding, and carried out mass shootings across occupied Europe. One single unit, Reserve Police Battalion 101, a group of fewer than 500 middle-aged men from Hamburg, most of them drafted civilians with no prior military experience, was responsible for the shooting deaths of at least 38,000 Jews and the deportation of 45,000 more to the gas chambers at Treblinka. And when the war ended, most of these men simply went home. To understand what happened after 1945, you have to understand what Germany's police had become. Before Hitler, policing in Germany was a local matter, managed by individual states. But after the Nazis took power in 1933, that changed completely. By 1936, Heinrich Himmler had been appointed chief of the German police, and every police force in the country was brought under centralized control. Himmler split the system into two branches. The Ordnungspolizei handled uniformed law enforcement, everything from street patrols to fire brigades to rural gendarmes. The Sicherheitspolizei handled security, combining the criminal investigators of the Kripo with the secret state police, the Gestapo. Both branches reported to the SS. By 1939, nearly all senior police leadership positions were held by SS officers. The order police alone numbered over 240,000 men by 1940. During the war, they were organized into over 100 battalions and deployed alongside the Wehrmacht across occupied Europe. In the East, they participated in the full range of Nazi atrocities, from confiscating harvests and forcing populations into slave labor, to escorting trains bound for death camps, to lining men, women, and children up at the edges of pits and shooting them. Historians estimate that order police units murdered approximately 1 million people, the vast majority of them Jews. When the war ended in May 1945, the Allies faced an impossible problem. Germany had no functioning government, no legal system, and no legitimate police force. Millions of refugees and displaced persons flooded the roads. Armed gangs roamed the countryside. Looting and black marketeering were rampant. The occupying armies needed a police force immediately, but the existing one was compromised from top to bottom. In the Western zones, the Americans, British, and French moved quickly to rebuild civilian policing, but on completely different terms. The entire Nazi police structure was dissolved. The centralized system Himmler had built was dismantled, and police authority was returned to individual states and cities. The Allies insisted on three principles: decentralize, demilitarize, and democratize. New police forces were established at the local and state level, modeled on the policing traditions of the occupying power. In the American zone, this meant city and county forces. In the British zone, constabulary-style departments. Each zone developed its own uniforms, rank structures, and procedures, deliberately breaking from the Nazi model. The most senior and most compromised officers were removed through denazification. Gestapo and SD personnel were classified as members of criminal organizations by the Nuremberg Tribunal and were subject to automatic arrest. Thousands were detained. Questionnaires called the Fragebogen were used to assess the political background of every officer. Those found to have been active Nazi Party members or SS men were dismissed. But here is where the story takes a darker turn. Denazification was never designed to last. As the Cold War intensified, the Western Allies shifted their priorities from punishing the past to containing the Soviet Union. In 1951, West Germany passed Article 131 of the Basic Law, a provision that allowed former civil servants who had been dismissed under denazification to be rehired into public service. This included police officers, and they came back in enormous numbers. By the late 1950s, a majority of senior police administrators in West Germany had previously served under the Nazi regime. A study commissioned by the Bundeskriminalamt, the Federal Criminal Police Office, found that over 75% of its senior officials during the 1950s had been former members of the Nazi Party, the SS, or the Gestapo. Many of these men had trained at Reinhard Heydrich's Führer School for Police Leadership. Some had served in the Einsatzgruppen, some had overseen deportations. Now they were running West Germany's most important criminal investigation agency. The myth that took hold within the police was that officers had merely been non-political professionals following orders. They claimed they had simply done their duty, enforced the law as it existed, and had no personal responsibility for the crimes committed under the regime. Through the writings of a few former police officers, this self-exoneration became part of the public narrative. For decades, the police's role in the Holocaust went largely unexamined in West Germany. Meanwhile, in the East, the Soviets took an entirely different approach. They did not reform the police, they replaced it. In the Soviet occupation zone, the existing police force was dissolved and rebuilt almost from scratch. By 1947, over 90% of the members of the new Volkspolizei, the People's Police, were people from outside the profession with no prior police experience. Only about 6% had worked in the police before 1945. Former Nazi Party members were purged. In their place, the Soviets recruited politically reliable communists, many of them former Wehrmacht prisoners of war who had been converted to the communist cause in Soviet camps. The Volkspolizei was placed under the control of the German administration of the interior and run like a second army, with military ranks, military drill, and rigid political indoctrination. Its purpose was not just to maintain order, but to enforce the socialist state. Within the Volkspolizei, a specialized unit called Commissariat 5 was created to handle internal security, rooting out political dissidents and suspected Nazi holdovers. In February 1950, this unit became the foundation for something far more powerful, the Ministerium für Staatssicherheit, better known as the Stasi, East Germany's notorious secret police, which would grow into one of the most pervasive surveillance organizations in history. The Volkspolizei also gave birth to East Germany's military. Paramilitary units known as the Kasernierte Volkspolizei, the barracked People's Police, were established in the late 1940s with Soviet support. These units were armed, housed in barracks, and trained for combat. In 1956, they were formally absorbed into the newly created National People's Army. So the police force the Soviets built in Eastern Germany did not just replace the Nazi police. It became the seed of an entire authoritarian security state. Back in the West, the question of what the police had done during the war was not seriously confronted until decades later. The men of Reserve Police Battalion 101, who had murdered tens of thousands of Jews in Poland, went home to Hamburg after the war. Their commander, Major Wilhelm Trapp, was captured by the British, tried by a Polish court, and executed in 1948. But the rank and file were never prosecuted. They returned to civilian life. Some went back to police work. An investigation was opened in the 1960s, and over 200 former members were interrogated, but no convictions followed. The historian Christopher Browning later used those interrogation records to write his landmark book, Ordinary Men, which revealed how average civilians, not fanatical Nazis, had been transformed into willing killers through peer pressure, obedience to authority, and the gradual normalization of violence. It was not until the 2000s and the 2010s that German institutions began systematically examining the Nazi past of their police forces. The Bundeskriminalamt commissioned its own historical study in 2007, and the results confirmed what many had long suspected. The continuity between the Nazi police and the post-war police was not an accident or oversight. It was a deliberate choice, driven by Cold War expediency, institutional self-protection, and a society that preferred forgetting to accountability. After reunification in 1990, the Volkspolizei was dissolved and its officers were screened for Stasi connections. Those found to have been Stasi informants were dismissed. The remainder could apply for positions in the new state police forces, but they were required to undergo retraining in West German law. Even decades later, former Volkspolizei officers carried a social stigma. Being a former VOPO, as they were known, meant being associated with the wrong side of history. Today, Germany's police is organized along federal lines, with 16 state forces and a federal police agency, The Bundespolizei. The deliberate decentralization, the separation of powers, the constitutional limits on surveillance, all of these are direct responses to what the police became under the Nazis. The lesson Germany drew from its own history was that a centralized, militarized police force answerable to a single authority was one of the most dangerous tools a dictatorship could possess. And the men who wielded that tool, many of them ordinary men, proved that the capacity for extraordinary violence could be found in the most unremarkable places. If you found this video insightful, like this video, subscribe and hit the bell for more After History. Thanks for watching.